Hi there, my name is Tracy and I work for Natural Horse New Zealand. I'm an animal behaviourist and I've been helping people with their horses with all manner of problems for the last 20 years. I've given quite a lot of my time to working with problematic cases such as those that are suffering from behavioural problems or trauma, or also horses who are having problems with medical situations like laminitis, for example. My own horse got laminitis when I first came to New Zealand, and that was over 20 years ago. And I dove deep into research at that time, and I've not come out of it since. I have spent a huge amount of time dealing with laminitis and helping thousands and tens of thousands of people over that time. And one of my concerns is the rubbish that's written about it on the internet. It drives me absolutely insane, some of the things that people tell you to do regarding laminitis. So my job here today is to try and educate people so that we can try and prevent laminitis, and also to help people to recover a horse who's got laminitis in as fast as time as possible. So let's talk about what actually laminitis is. So the lamina, they are like a leaf type structure that are layered inside the hoof capsule of the horse. They are supportive of the lower leg bone, which is called the coffin bone, or sometimes called P3. The best way to try and imagine it is, if you imagine that the lamina is like a trampoline bed and the hoof bone is suspended on that bed, okay, and it acts like a shock absorber, and it's a spring, and it gives the horse the cushioning that they require for each step. Now, even though laminitis is often nothing to do with the hoof itself, otherwise most of the time it's caused by what the horse is eating, this lamina becomes inflamed. When it becomes inflamed, it starts to break and tear away from the coffin bone. If the horse is left for too long with laminitis, what will happen is the structure will fail so badly that this bone will sink and it will come out at the bottom of the horse's hoof. You can imagine the pain that goes with a condition like that. It's absolutely excruciating. You'll often see horses leaning back onto their haunches, trying to get the pain and weight off the front legs to try and reduce the pain. Often horses will just lay down, they're absolutely exhausted. And some of them just want to give up. It's an awful condition for everybody concerned. Now, laminitis can be caused by various things. Here's the list. So we can have mechanical laminitis, which means that the horse has suffered from shock, such as being galloped on a concrete road. We've had a few of those, but they're very rare. We can then see post-surgical laminitis, where the horse has had an inflammation happen inside their body due to a surgical procedure that's then gone on to create laminitis. We could see this happening during pregnancy with mares when they're at their heaviest. We can also see after they've given birth. We can also see supportive limb laminitis sometimes, where the horse has, say, got an abscess in one hoof, so he's weight bearing all his weight onto 3 hooves, and those 3 hooves are taking an artificial amount of weight and develop laminitis because of that. Now, all of those conditions make up less than 1% of all laminitis cases. The other 99% is all about diet. And the reason we have so much laminitis here in New Zealand is because we live in a very accelerated grass growth country. Unless you're from New Zealand, you won't understand this. I used to live in the UK before I came to New Zealand 20 years ago to raise my daughter. And I was stunned when I came to New Zealand and how fast your grass grows over here, folks. It's absolutely bonkers on how much grass grows in New Zealand. And that's due to various reasons. Soil, warm, long sunshine hours. Even in winter, really, you don't get that cold. I'm sure the people in the South Island will hang me for that, but in comparison to a lot of places, you don't really get a big cold. You've then got a moist and warm climate with wet soils, and also a big hole in the ozone layer really high above you that's causing an accelerated level of photosynthesis. So the UV here is absolutely mad, and that creates huge amounts of sugar spikes. If you've got a horse out on 24-hour pasture, now I'm going to look over here because this is where my pasture is, it doesn't take long for horses to develop laminitis. And it's not just fat little ponies who get laminitis. I can tell you, I've been working with these horses for years, and from every type of horse, from the tiniest little miniature through to the massivest draft horse, and every breed and size in between, every horse can get laminitis. And I see every horse getting laminitis. There are some breeds that are more prone to it than others, especially those that are not used to rich pasture grasses, such as Caimanuas, for example. We see a huge amount of Caimanuas develop laminitis, which is very concerning to me. We then see, obviously, fat little ponies get it, and overweight horses get it. But I've seen just as many thoroughbreds get it as fat little ponies. So it's not about the breed, it's about how many hours the horse is eating the grass. It's also not about the grass. So some people have got these ideas that if their horse is on ryegrass, they can get laminitis. But if they're on, say, prairie grass or timothy grass, they can. That's nonsense. That's an absolute myth. It's not a case of which grass, it's how many hours the horse is allowed to graze that grass. Now, this time of year here in New Zealand, regardless of what breed of horse you have, it's recommended to reduce the grass intake. That would either involve break feeding or track grazing, or finding a way to bring your horse in for a few hours. Now, we don't advocate stables. I don't think that's a very fair thing to do to lock the horse away. Maybe a dry lot would be a good idea, or an area with less grass. Okay, so find a way to have a grass management plan is the best way to prevent laminitis. So what do you do if your horse has got laminitis? Okay, what we need to understand is laminitis, when it's pasture induced, is normally created by what the horse is eating. It's not just about reducing sugar, folks. It's also about reducing inflammation. After all, laminitis is inflammation of the lamina. So what we need to be careful of is that we only feed ingredients that don't cause inflammation. And some people aren't aware of this, but there's actually ingredients out there such as flaxseed and flaxseed oil that is anti-inflammatory. That will actually heal inflammation in the horse's body. So we can use foods to heal our horses. Foods that create inflammation are anything that the horse doesn't eat naturally in the wild. So if your horse can't pick whatever you're feeding them off a tree or off a natural pasture, don't feed it, okay? Personally, I don't feed beet pulp, I don't feed soya, I don't feed copra, I don't feed anything that's been processed, okay? Because that food has been dicked about with, and dicked about food creates inflammation. Now, the equine food industry would have my guts for garters with this one, but I'm going to tell you straight now, they don't have your horse's best interest at heart. I work with thousands of people every single year who are feeding their horses products that are causing inflammation, that are causing laminitis. Even foods that have been labelled as laminitis approved cause laminitis. Have a look on some of the back of the packets. You'll be stunned. Some of these foods, they're not even real. They've got synthetic ingredients, synthetic minerals, synthetic supplements. Now these products, they create inflammation because the horse's body doesn't recognise them, okay? When you have something to eat, you have got a digestive soup in your body, the same as the horse has, that breaks down bacteria through bacterial digestion, okay? In other words, billions of bacteria attack that food, they break it down, that's been able to separate the nutrients into the bloodstream and utilise that for your body's growth, healing, recovery, etc. Now, there's a microbiota, that is this digestive soup that basically shakes hands with the food that you give it. In other words, if I feed my horse Timothy, inside my digestive system, if I'm a horse, there is a bacteria that's used to breaking down that food. Now, if you feed something artificial, like say beet pulp, okay, I hate beet pulp, hate it, hate it, hate it. Man's waste product from the sugar industry, dressed up to feed horses. I'll tell you a story about beet pulp. I had 26 horses at our sanctuary and I had to go away for the weekend. When I came back, one of our volunteers had fed the horses some beet pulp, and all 26 of them were sucking wood. So I started analysing the beet pulp to try and find out why that was. And I found quite high levels of aluminium, genetically modified. It was genetically modified was the beet, and it had also included glyphosate, which is a weed killer. It also included quite high levels of iron, which was concerning. And the horses were not able to absorb the copper that they normally would because the iron had interfered with that, and that's why they were chewing wood. Safe to say I'll never feed beet pulp to any of my horses ever again. Okay, so it's up to you what you feed to your horses, but just be aware that there's foods out there that they just don't make any sense. I mean, when was the last time you saw a horse climbing a coconut tree for food? So why would you give them copra? It doesn't make any sense. You know, genetically modified soya, why would you give them that? It's dressed up sometimes as vegetable protein meals. The other thing is, don't listen to the American advice that you're being given about your New Zealand horse, okay? Because their soils and their climate's totally different to ours. They don't have the grass challenges that we have here. We've got huge amounts of farming grasses here as well that invade our pasture. They can cause problems. We have very high levels of mycotoxins, and that's again due to our climate and our long sunshine hours. So try to give your horse a recovery plan that is New Zealand based to address the New Zealand conditions of your horse with laminitis. Now, if you want to find out more about laminitis, hop onto our website, www.naturalhorse.co.nz. I hope to be sharing some more of this information with you shortly, but for now I better get back to work. Anyway, take care of yourselves. I hope it's helped you. See you later. Bye.